Our first piece, be prepared, the end of it, you feel free to stand for the national anthem, which you'll hear bits and pieces, and finally we'll get to that grand finale. And now you can add singing with an orchestra to your repertoire. The next three pieces that we're going to do are all dances. Please stay off the tables. First one, Dvorak. It's country folk kind of dancing, so there's a lot of joyous freedom in that. And then we'll tell you more as we go on, but enjoy the lightness of the Eastern European flavor that Dvorak chose. None of the music is true folk music, but he composed this original music and used the basic styles and rhythm patterns of the folk music of the period. now we move on to Vienna, home of the Strausses, and the Viennese waltz. Johann Strauss composed many, many of these waltzes, and it's said that he could compose a melody almost at the drop of a hat, short melodies, and it was part of what was done in the social echelons of Vienna. So join us as we go to the ballroom for this next set of waltzes, the Emperor Waltzes by Strauss. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful afternoon. The Wind Ensemble Quintet will be playing after we play, so make sure that you stick around and hear them. So what did we have? We had Dvorak, we had Strauss, and now let's move into the 1990s with some Irish music, and enjoy. Thanks again for coming.
open our program, we'd like to feature our Woodwind Quintet. They're a band of all-stars, I would say, from our band. And they're going to play a couple of selections for you today before the wind ensemble gets started. So thank you once again for being here, and I present the Woodwind Quintet whenever they're ready to go. That was a walking tune by Percy Grainger, famous English composer, probably best known for some of his band literature. but that was also a well-known composition of his. The quintet now will finish up its short program with a rag by Scott Joplin, soloist. We hope you enjoy it. Parkland Woodwind Quintet. Although that piece had the syncopated characters of a rag, it was actually more akin to a tango. You could probably detect that from listening to it. That, of course, was the Irish Washerwoman, which kind of dovetails nicely on the coattails of the orchestra's last piece, which was also an Irish piece. There is actually some speculation that this piece might be of British origins, but we'll just ignore that for now. So obviously, we're not going to be around for St. Patrick's Day. It's right smack dab in the middle of spring break this year, so I'm going to give you a little taste of Ireland, and did so with Irish Washerwoman. And from the notes here, the Irish Washerwoman, the first movement of Leroy Anderson's Irish Suite, combines folk material with the composer's own whimsicality. That's always a quality I look for, in people's whimsicality. It's got that whimsicality. The score was commissioned by the Irish Society of Boston and carries a dedication to Arthur Fiedler. So those of you who have this, you can see the top banner of the conductor's score, and it says right there, to Arthur Fiedler. He conducted his first performance in June of 1947 at Symphony Hall in Boston. This was composed in 1946. Usually publication date is often a year or more after the actual composition of the piece. But of course, since Leroy Anderson essentially had a working orchestra at his disposal, the Boston Pops, he could get his stuff played rather quickly. So it's an Irish jig, which is a spirited dance, and it's in 6/8 time typically. Although there were a couple of permutations throughout this, but essentially the feeling is the same throughout. So that's the Irish Washerwoman. And next on our program, we have a very interesting piece that, like some of our program, this one and the next one evokes some images, there's an element of the abstract, of course, which is essential, especially in instrumental music. But the images, I think, if you're kind of aware of the composer's intention, become somewhat clear. And Persis, which is written by James L. Jose, is based on a story. It's a fantasy overture, which tells the story of a modern-day American man who travels back through time to the ancient Persian city of Persepolis. He begins a wild and wonderful adventure as he is suddenly surrounded by magnificent architecture, grand marble statues, and beautiful works of art. He turns and sees a beautiful Persian woman in a flower-laden courtyard. He's completely smitten by her, and he carefully approaches her, and miraculously, she recognizes him as someone she had known before in another place and time. They embrace and share a brief, blissful moment together, but his presence in the royal courtyard, of course, is forbidden, and he finds himself being chased by armed warriors. So you'll know when this happens in the piece. As he runs frantically through the corridors of the city, he reflects sadly on the romance that might have been. That's hard for me to reconcile. How can be running for your life, but yet, reflecting sadly on romance? That's interesting. I don't know. I always think of someone in a recliner with a beer and Cheetos, crying about, love lost. But anyway, I jest. But this is Persis by James L. Jose. Hope you enjoyed it. Persis by James L. Jose. Very well-known composer for band literature, and all of his stuff sounds really great. So the next one we're going to do also evokes some rather stark images, and I've always really liked this piece. It's what I call 3 vignettes of different American landscapes, different places. These places represent the West Coast, Middle America, and also the Eastern United States. I kind of added some of my own impressions of it. It's what occurred to me. You may or may not agree with it, especially when you hear this piece. Timothy Broad, as is pronounced, he's from New Jersey originally, but he was educated at Northwestern, which has a famous and very well-known music school, and a lot of great musicians have gone through Northwestern, as he did. He spent some time in Chicago after that, but ended up in his home area in New Jersey. But he does represent Chicago in this piece. So there are 3 landscapes that he represents. There's Point Reyes, which is a land in Northern California that kind of juts out into the Pacific Ocean. And the Pacific Ocean, being deep and big, is more of a mysterious ocean than the Atlantic or any other ocean in the world. And it just occurred to me that the way that this first piece sounds, it sounds like someone is kind of out on this jutting landscape, looking over the vast, expansive sea, and just having feelings of uncertainty and wonder, is the next thing that happens going to be good? Kind of hoping for that. There's kind of a big question mark on this part of it. The second one it's really interesting. Was composed around 2000, 2001. And so it reflects that more modern sensibility of harmonic structures and the abstract nature of some music and what it can represent. And the second one, Bear Mountain, which represents the eastern United States. It's a mountain that overlooks the Hudson River north of New York City. And it seems to me that the way that this one starts, it kind of has a menacing quality. Imagine a big bear, stalking its prey. Just stomp, 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 just looking for its prey. And the character of this particular piece changes. It's as though the bear, the prey has vanished into thin air, and the bear doesn't know what to do. The bear is beside itself, wondering what happened, just alone, and kind of sad, not knowing what to do. And finally, Dempster Street has it's a very upbeat, optimistic characteristic, which I think is a wonderful way to end up this piece. Dempster Street, for those of you who have been to Chicago or through Chicago, have seen signs for it, whether you've been on it or not. So it's in northern Chicago, and it goes east to west. To me, this movement it's happy and fun. It's actually the form of it is a 12-bar blues. So if you know blues, if you know traditional 12-bar blues, that's essentially what this is. But he explores some really interesting things harmonically and mood-wise that I think you'll enjoy. So without further ado, Mysterian Landscapes by Timothy Broad. Thank you once again for being here and enjoying the music presented by the Park and Large Ensembles, the Symphony Orchestra, and the wind ensemble with the woodwind quintet. We'd like to commence, or actually wind up our program, today with this final piece, which is familiar to pretty much everybody, and most people, if you're of a certain age, some alternate lyrics that you might sing along to this melody. This is actually a kind of a collection of marches by a composer, and I want to add some information which I found pretty interesting about this particular piece. So, Colonel Bogey on Parade, which is based on the composition Colonel Bogey. It's a march, and it's by Kenneth J. Alford, as most people know. Which is actually a pseudonym for F.J. Ricketts, Lieutenant F.J. Ricketts, who was an officer in the Royal Marine, I guess it was. And so from some of the notes that I got here, Colonel Bogey is arguably the most famous march ever written. It is certainly the most profitable. First published in 1914, which was the beginning of World War I. It quickly made the bestseller sheet music lists. At that time, sheet music was the media for selling hits. Everybody had a piano in their parlor. If you had a piano in your parlor, there was someone in your household who could play piano and read music well. And that still exists. You can still get sheet music over at the music shop. It's called PVG, Piano Vocal Guitar, that has all that as well. But that was the media at that time. By the early 1930s, it had sold well over 1 million copies, which was a lot, especially for that time. And it had been recorded innumerable times. And this is the early days of recording and distribution, that media as selling music. It was chosen as the theme tune for the film The Bridge Over the River Kwai, which won the 1957 Oscar for Best Picture. If you haven't seen that movie, you should watch it, most definitely. It's fictional. I mean, there are some underpinnings which are reality. It's called there was a series of bridges throughout that part of the Pacific Theater throughout. At that time it was Burma and Siam, but Thailand in that area. It was called the Bridge of Death. There were over 15,000 conscripted who died in the construction of bridges in that area. But it was drawn based. The story of the movie was drawn based on that, but the actual movie itself was the characters and the events were actually fictional. So it was composed by Lieutenant F.J. Ricketts, a military bandmaster who was director of music for the Royal Marines at Plymouth. At the time, service personnel were not encouraged to have another profession, and that's why he used a pseudonym. So he composed Colonel Bogey under the pseudonym Kenneth J. Alford, which is what is on the music. As you can see, if you have this, I also captured the banner for this piece as well. So who was Colonel Bogey? And is his name what it sounds like? Yes, it is, actually. So if any of you have ever played golf, you know what a bogey is, right? That's when you can't get the ball in the hole in the prescribed number of strokes or shots. A bogey is 1 over, 1 extra shot. So if it's a par 4 and you get a 5, that's a bogey. So the story goes that Ricketts was stationed in Scotland, and sometimes he would encounter his commanding officer, who was an eccentric colonel. And instead of shouting 4, warning of an impending drive, he preferred to whistle a descending minor third. And I don't think I can do that. My mouth is too dry. So it's like from the fifth of the scale to the third. Da 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 da. So that minor third. That's the opening motivic cell that's so famous. And that little tag stayed and germinated in the mind of the receptive Ricketts. And so the opening of the memorable march was born. So this particular arrangement is like it's called a march fantasia of marches and counter marches. And it's like a tapestry that uses the theme as its basis and weaves several other marches into it. And also features our piccolo player, Kathy Harvey, whistling with the piccolo part in the middle of this. So we hope you enjoy our final piece for today. And thank you once again for being here. We really appreciate your attendance. It means a lot to us. Please support our programs. It's so important that we get live music happening and out to the community. And we have community members in this band and the orchestra as well. And it's an important program that you are now part of from having been here. And we encourage you to come back later in the semester, in later April, to see the other programs as well. And don't forget, we also have the theaters presenting programs. We have our other ensembles, including the concert band, guitar ensemble, jazz combo, the chamber singers that all have performance scheduled throughout the school year. So once again, thank you for being here, and we'll leave you with Colonel Bodie on Parade. Thank you again. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, and we hope to see you again.